Are you an INTJ and been accused of being autistic, kind of just staring out in space, socially awkward, not very empathetic? Or are you autistic and kind of speculating your personality type? Well, this video is for you, so go ahead and stay tuned and watch the whole video, because today I'm going to talk about 3 parallels of being an INTJ and having autism spectrum disorder. A lot of INTJs and other types kind of get typecasted into certain mental illnesses, personality disorders, or things like autism spectrum disorder. For INTJs personally, we kind of get accused of being sociopaths, psychopaths, having antisocial personality disorder, even narcissistic personality disorder, or just narcissism. But one big one that we get is being called autistic or Asperger syndrome. And it's something that I personally speculated for probably the last 10, 12 years. I'm actually going to get evaluated next month as I'm making this video. What will it prove? Being almost 39 and being diagnosed with autism? Probably not much, but I guess maybe some closure, some answers. If you struggle with this, let me know down in the comments below. I'd appreciate it. A lot of people criticize the DSM-5, including myself, about autism. It definitely seems like it's behind on the momentum of the autistic movement, like awareness. It's kind of like the outsider looking in perspective. They really don't consider what people with autism say and how it is. But we're going to look at some of the DSM-5 criteria, as well as some anecdotal evidence as well. And I usually go with anecdotal stuff. I mean, I'd rather have somebody who is autistic tell me what it's like to be autistic than some prick with a advanced degree who thinks they know everything. And they do know some things, but there's some things that they just don't know, even though they don't want to admit it. The first criteria point I'm going to look at is a lack of empathy. Both INTJs and people on the autism spectrum disorder kind of get it rough when they say that we are these emotionless bastards who don't care about anybody but ourselves. And there's probably some truth to that in a way. For INTJs, we have what's called FE Trickster. Basically, FE, if you want to learn about that, you can watch this video up above or down below in the description, is about kind of group cohesion, picking up on the feelings of others, trying to make other people feel good for the sake of your own feelings. And it's something that we greatly lack in our psyche with the FE Trickster function. People with autism, they get accused of it the same way, but it isn't true. Some people even argue that people with autism are hyper empathetic. It's just that they don't pick up on the social cues when they need to use that empathy. Like INTJs with our SE inferior, we kind of fear of giving people a bad experience. We're hyper vigilant about giving people a good experience. And I think it's kind of similar with autism. You want to give people a good time. You want to be fit in and not be a pariah of society, but you just don't have the social awareness to do it. Because both INTJs and people with Asperger's or autism feel things very deeply, and we are indeed human. Another thing that INTJs do is that we're kind of seen as cold and even draconic, but we like to help people in a pragmatic way. I guess our love language, as far as giving love, is often acts of service. We kind of look at it from a lens of, we want to help people's lives function easier. We want to help them become more efficient. So another way I like to see it is, well, we don't always know when to comfort people, but we would rather find a solution to help people overcome what's bothering them, because if they weren't being bothered by what they're being bothered by, then they wouldn't have the problem, right? But just doesn't really work that way most of the time. Most people want comfort and support and validation, but we just kind of want people to figure out what's bothering them so it doesn't bother them. But most people need that validation before they can proceed to solution mode, I guess you could say. 2, being highly fixated and obsessive on certain topics or things or interests. And I'm going to read some criteria here from the DSM-5. Highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus. Example, strong attachment to or preoccupation with unusual objects. Excessively circumscribed or pervasive interest. And that is one of the criteria from the DSM-5. Does it sound familiar at all? INTJs and people with ASD can be kind of seen as hyper-focused and really obsessive about one or a few topics. I remember I went to this school with this one kid who's probably definitely on the spectrum. He started out being obsessed with the Statue of Liberty. He learned everything he could about the Statue of Liberty probably for about 2 years. He knew how many pennies could fit in the Statue of Liberty, how much it weighs. He could tell you anything you want to know about the Statue of Liberty. Not that you'd probably want to know about it anyways, who cares? But he loved it. Once he learned about the Statue of Liberty, he went to the Pyramids of Giza, and he learned everything you can know about the Pyramids of Giza. And he was just super fixated on that in his own little world. A harmless guy, but he got a lot of trouble and a lot of crap. Like, I have a lot of particular interests, and people kind of raise their eyebrows when I talk to them about it. Like when I get in depth about typology and start talking about, trickster function this and hero function that, people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's just some stupid test online. And that is the reputation that typology has, unfortunately, because of MBTI. Also about astrology and things like that. And I was interested in judo, which is kind of an obscure martial art here in the US, but I have these few things that I'm really focused on. And, I don't care about drinking Budweiser and watching the Cowboys game and crap like that. What is the reason autistics do this? They kind of get overwhelmed with the real world, I guess, and they kind of fall back on their own obsessions. That's kind of a coping mechanism. I guess it's kind of the way the INTJs do it too with their SE inferior. SE is kind of associated with reality, and we are kind of insecure about being in the present moment, not in reality. So we're in our heads with our NI in our own little worlds, trying to kind of make it come true in some weird way. And we got to use that TE and that SE to become more practical and extroverted out in the world while fulfilling our ideals and our values with our FI child. Probably cut this back around when I'm talking about astrology. I see astrology and like online personality tests kind of similar in a lot of ways. Like people think of astrology, they can think of sun sign astrology, where you have your one sun sign and that encompasses your own personality and psyche. And people take an online test, and that's basically sun sign typology, as I call it. And there's MBTI who, well, they don't even really look at the 4 functions in the ego stack. People have a big misconception about that. You read Gifts Differing by Isabel Myers, and it really doesn't talk anything about cognitive functions at all. But using a 4 model system is like using your sun sign, your moon sign, your ascendant, maybe. It's not the whole picture. You get in depth with an 8 function model like John Beebe's and add interaction styles and the quadras and socionics, then you can actually look at a complete whole birth chart. You should check out my other channel, Astrotype, who I do with an ENTJ named Xeon, where we look at birth charts and look for type. It's quite interesting. Number 3, sensitivity to lights, sounds, and outside stimuli. Both INTJs and people with Asperger's and autism are typically quite susceptible to loud noises and lights and things like that. It didn't bother me as much as I'm younger, but as I get older, it seems to bother me more and more. Due to our NI as INTJs or NI hero, we want peace and quiet. And we kind of get pissy when we get interrupted. Like that AC just kicked on right now, and I'm trying to film this video. There's something called monotropism, which affects people with autism spectrum disorder. And point number 2, where I talked about being hyper-focused on one or a few things, is something that autistics have that's called monotropism, and that's just basically what I mentioned before, being hyper-fixated on something to kind of escape the real world, kind of as a safe place, a coping mechanism. And that kind of leads back to being sensitive to sounds and lights and things like that too. It's just overwhelming. We want to be back in our own little safe world. Crowds is another thing that usually triggers me. Like at this job I'm at, I'm around like 100+ people walking around, and most of them are ESTPs, ESFPs, just yelling, being loud, obnoxious, listening to rap music. I got them in this place anyways because it talks about drugs and stuff. But yeah, it can be very overwhelming for both INTJs and people on the spectrum. Are you an INTJ? Are you autistic? Are you both? Let me know down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you.